Hi, Joe. Do you want to introduce yourself and your family and tell us a little bit about your pregnancy and your birth experience?
Yes, hi Helen. So as you said, I'm Jo, and I've now got a 3-month-old baby girl called Ari, and my husband is Jackson. So Ari is our first baby. She's been an absolute dream baby, which is great for us. So my pregnancy journey was pretty straightforward, to be honest. I didn't have too much sickness. I think I had like a week of morning sickness. But I knew the triggers, which was great. So I just got rid of those. No strange cravings, which is good. A few of my friends were starting to lick soap and things. So I'm glad I didn't go down that track. Um, Otherwise, no, I think it was all pretty straightforward. Then it was kind of towards the end of my pregnancy. I was about 37 weeks and I was still working. So I'm a full-time veterinary nurse, which means a lot of time on my feet, lifting animals, non-stop running around, along with obviously the kind of stress factor in that job as well. Um, and it was just about lunchtime, and I had sat down for my lunch, and one of my colleagues said, "Oh, you're looking a bit pale today. You seem a bit off." I said, "I'm just not feeling 100% today. Just feel a bit lightheaded and things like that." And then she's like, "Okay, well maybe you should go get checked out." And fortunately, where I worked, there was a countdown across the road that has a pharmacy, and they actually had a blood pressure cuff in there. So obviously, from reading many pregnancy books and things, I knew if you were feeling a little bit off or lightheaded, to just get your blood pressure checked. So I went over there, and actually it was quite high compared to what I'm used to for myself. So I called my midwife straight away, and obviously she was a little bit concerned because it had elevated. So she straight away said, "I need to leave work and go to the lab test and get some bloods and urine done." So off we went to do that, and then I went home for the afternoon. She called me later on that evening to say that actually my results were absolutely fine, which is great. So my bloods were good, and there was no protein in my urine, which is obviously what they look for with preeclampsia. Um, so I was fortunate on that regard. So then just went back to work and obviously discussed with my boss just about kind of cutting back a little bit and trying to kind of do a bit more reception duty. Much to my disgust, I prefer to be on my feet, but that's okay. Um, so we did that, and then the week later we had a check again with my midwife, and my blood pressure was still elevated. It was only marginal, and it was just the diastolic measurement, so not the systolic, which is great because it wasn't both of them. Um, and obviously, each time you go to your midwife, as you know, you'll wee on the little stick, and they'll tell you if there's any kind of protein or glucose in there. There was actually protein this time, so she wanted me again to go get labs done. So I went, and the labs did show that I had protein in my urine, but my bloods were still okay. So because now the lab results have changed, she advised that I go to the hospital and get a CTG of baby. So just to make sure that baby was all okay, because obviously it was, I think my diastolic originally was around 50 and it got up to 90. So it kind of had that quite
Mm,
big jump
mm.
quite suddenly. So we went in, at which point I ended up having to stay the night, which was tough, to be fair, because Jackson wasn't even allowed to come in with me at all because of the COVID situation here.
So, what month
Um,
was that? Was that
so that was
August?
38. Yeah, 38 weeks. Yeah, so I was in August.
August
So
2021.
yeah, so
Yeah.
literally like
Mm,
COVID had just
mm,
started. We've just
mm.
gone into lockdown. Of course, all I wanted was to have him there
Yeah.
with me because you're feeling so uncertain at that time.
Mm,
But yeah, so I ended up staying in there the night. And fortunately, my blood pressure seemed to have stabilized and got to an okay level that they were kind of much happier with. At which point they said to me about induction. And as you can imagine, I was feeling really like, oh, this has kind of hit me like a ton of bricks
mm,
because I didn't realize that we were on this path just yet.
mm,
I thought that if my blood test and my urine were both elevated, then I would understand that that's where this was going. But because my bloods were normal and my blood pressure was starting to stabilize, I was still feeling like really uncertain as to why induction had been discussed. So at this point, that's basically when, I used your technique of brains. So asking those right questions, figuring out what the benefit, the risks were, and all of those things, because I didn't want to go down that track if I didn't have to. So I spoke to someone at that time, and they were helpful. They were really helpful, the doctors at North Shore Hospital. They basically made me aware of my risks. So unfortunately, with preeclampsia, I could be absolutely fine. And that's how I was feeling after that night in hospital. I was feeling fine at this point. Otherwise, I had no blurred vision. I was feeling well in myself, still able to walk my usual walks every day. It was literally just the measurement and my urine that were different. So it was really hard to wrap your head around the fact that someone's kind of telling you that you're unwell, even though you feel fine. So unfortunately with it, though, it means that all of a sudden that could actually completely turn and I could get really, really quite sick, which can then actually be detrimental to my baby and the placenta. So obviously the placenta is the biggest concern when you've got preeclampsia. So for me, once they discussed those risks and obviously made me aware of how severe it could be, and to the point where I could actually end up having seizures if it got to this point, that was exceptionally frightening. And obviously at that point, that's when I went home then, and I wanted to digest everything and obviously talk to Jackson and my mum, just so I could kind of debrief with them, and then do a little bit of my own research from home as well. So this was on like the Tuesday. And at this point, when I left the hospital, they said, we'll schedule you in for induction on Saturday. And I was like, okay, well, I know they have to schedule these things in because it's a procedure. So then went home, and then I saw my midwife again on Friday for a checkup. At which point, again, my blood pressure was high again. So then she sent me back for another CTG. Now, obviously, they still had that the induction booked for the Saturday. So I went in on the Friday by myself again. And again, I still had a lot of concerns. I didn't know what I was feeling. I wanted to have my natural water birth. I had planned to have a water birth in the hospital anyway. We live really far rurally. So being in a medical background myself, actually having professionals around me made me feel safer. So I already knew I was going to birth in a hospital, but not to be induced. So went back on the Friday, and unfortunately my urine results had elevated even more. So again, things were like getting a little bit worse. So I went in this time with my list of questions that we discussed at home, and I actually asked to speak with a specialist obstetrician about it.
Nice. And was Jackson able to be with you at this point in time, or were you still on your own?
I was still on my own at this time. Yeah, so that was pretty tough. But the midwives there were great, and I obviously discussed with them my concerns, and that's when she offered to bring in a specialist to talk with me. And yeah, I was very adamant in what I wanted to ask and what answers I needed to make this decision. It was quite funny because at that point they were like, oh, you're scheduling in tomorrow. Like, why do you kind of have questions? Until I actually found that right person that then took me that next step further to get the answers I needed. So that's why I really do say to people, like, if you've got concerns, just keep asking until you get your answers, because you'll get them and the right person will give them to you.
But you've got to keep asking, right?
You do, because people do, unfortunately, they do shut you down almost.
Mm,
And if they're not the right person that's understanding you, then they can make you feel like you have got to make that decision.
mm,
But you don't.
mm,
You really don't. And I wasn't at a detrimental stage in my pregnancy that I needed to quickly make this decision.
mm,
My blood work was still absolutely fine. So I still had time to discuss all of this. So she was great. She made me aware again of the risks. And the biggest factor that made me feel okay with it was if I did get really sick and my blood pressure got worse, I wouldn't be able to look after Ari.
mm,
And that for me was frightening.
mm,
Obviously, as a new mum, you want to know that you're going to be there for your baby. That's like the sole reason you're doing this.
mm,
And having this beautiful human come into the earth is to be there for them. And if I couldn't be there for her because I was sick, that just broke my heart.
mm,
And that's really what made my decision to go
mhm,
ahead with induction at that time. So we scheduled for Saturday. So on the Friday, I got to go home, which was nice because it
mhm,
meant I could literally pack up the entire house, which, meant all the pillows, all the things, the lavender oil, the comforts that I needed to still make this a positive experience for myself. So we went on Saturday and we were excited at this point because we were
mm,
going to meet our little girl. And
mm,
I think that Friday night was that juggle of emotions of feeling upset that I wasn't getting my natural birth, but feeling really excited that we were going to meet her so soon.
mm,
So on Saturday, we just said we're just going to wipe the negative feelings and we're just going to focus on the fact that she's going to be here soon. And that's just the most exciting thing. So let's do our best to make it a positive experience. So we went in, and my induction was the misoprostol induction, which
which
is,
is the drink.
yeah, they give you the drink and you have it every 4 hours, and you can have a total of 8 doses in a
Mhm,
24-hour period.
mhm,
Um, so we arrived at 7 o'clock, and first dose was given at 8. And now my first day, which was the Saturday, got to about dose 6 and I started feeling some slight tightenings. Keeping in mind that we're in lockdown, so Jack and I couldn't even leave our
mm,
room. Like, we're in a
mm.
little room.
Oh, wait, did you have a room to yourself or were you in an assessment
Yeah.
area? Yeah,
Lucky we had a room to ourselves. That was very
great.
fortunate. So we were just playing cards, reading our books, like just trying to pass the time, bouncing on the ball,
Mm, yeah.
all of those things. But dose 6, I got a little bit of tightening and I was getting quite excited then. But then unfortunately things just kind of stopped.
Mm,
Now the funny thing about this is obviously they had the changeover of staff towards this time. And then this one midwife that came in, I just didn't really gel with her very
mm,
well. The midwife I'd had through the day, she was just like my person.
mm,
She was great. She had the same kind of vibes as I had. She made me feel great about the situation. And she literally explained every step. And every time I got monitored before I had to have that drink and after, she was like explaining the graph of the CTG to me. And I really
mm,
appreciated that. It made me feel good. Unfortunately, the midwife that then came on didn't have that same kind of
mm.
vibe. And it kind of put me in a bit of a negative spin. So I think, to be honest, my body just stopped. It was like,
Interesting, isn't it? Very
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. It just said, no, you're not feeling good. I am not bringing this baby out now. And everything just stopped. The
Mm,
tightening stopped. My tummy just went back to feeling as it did in the first instance. And yeah, so that was very interesting. So then we said, okay, well, we need to get some rest. So I popped on your lavender track because I tell you what, that just puts me right to sleep. It's a dream.
You're not the first person who's told me that. I hear that all the time. It's
Um,
so
I,
nice.
I love it. I love it. So I popped that on and we crashed out for about 4 hours, which was perfect. Then we started the next day. So they say, with the misoprostol, you can do 3 days of this. So the next day I was feeling positive. The morning nurse came in and she was a lovely young lady. And again, she made me feel much better in myself.
Mm,
So I was like, okay, here we go. Like, we're
mm,
going to have a good day. So it got to about dose 3 that day on the Sunday, and then it started really happening. And we were just sitting there playing cards. And again, I was just on the ball playing the cards with Jack. And it really started to tighten. I was like, oh, I started holding on to the side of the table. I was like, oh, this is something, babe. Like, this is happening. And then he's getting excited as well. At this point, they were manageable. I wasn't having to breathe through them or anything like that. I was able to just kind of walk around. It was just kind of the start of something. They came in then to do my CTG and give me the 4th dose. At which point then I had the 4th dose and it was all on. Like, it just happened. It was exceptionally tight in my tummy. The surges were just full on. Then my waters broke, which was actually really funny because you looked like it was the full kind of movie water break. It was everywhere. And of course, being in a hospital, there was splashback because of the floor, and oh wow, it was a mess.
Good on you.
So that was really exciting. So then this is now when I had to really use that wave breath, which was helping. I said to Jack, we need to pop the music on. So we'd made a track, and I just chose songs that I'd always liked to sing along to prior to even having baby come, which made me feel happy in myself. And then also I popped my headphones in and I literally had positive affirmations on repeat. I didn't want anything else in my ears. I just wanted that. I just said to Jack, keep playing that, keep playing that.
Oh, nice.
So at this point, then obviously the surges were really getting strong and intense. So I was having to stand over the bed and really lean over. Unfortunately, the whole time I've got the CTG on now. So that was pretty tough because I wasn't able to walk around freely. I was attached, and obviously you can wheel it, but when you're in that situation, trying to wheel that and keel yourself over, you just had to find a position that was really going to make you feel comfortable. So I just kind of leaned over the bed with my head down, basically in the mattress, smelling my lavender oil. And Jack was just rubbing my back, which was great because he did quite a hard rub on my lower back, which kind of helped with that distraction of where the pressure was. There was a lot of pressure in my lower back. So that was great. Like I said, I wanted a water birth. So at this point, things were now, we were 2 minutes apart. It was happening. It ramped up from pretty much like 20 to like 100 really quick. So I said to them, I'd really like to get in the bath. Is this an option? And unfortunately, it wasn't an option because of how fast things had progressed now. At which point I asked if I could go in the shower. Again, I wasn't able to go in the shower, not at this point. So they offered to have a little look and see how we were looking down there. And I was already at 7 centimeters. So at this point, they said, we need to move you to the birthing suite now because you're clearly progressing fast. They'd already called my midwife, so she was on her way down, which was great.
Nice.
So we moved down to...
So is this Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon here? Do you know?
It's Sunday afternoon now. So I think it was about like 5 o'clock the active labor kind of started. And then we went to the birthing suite, and that was like a mad dash. Like, I was just like, because I had the monitors on. So I said, okay, as soon as I finish this last surge, we need to just take these off, and I'm just going to get down there because I don't want to be in the middle of the hall, So we got down there. And of course, they kind of had to hook me back up again. Now things were obviously getting more and more intense, but the wave breath, the positive affirmations were all helping. I could not answer anyone's questions. I did not want to talk to anyone. I was so fortunate that Jack understood everything I needed, having water there for me, refreshing a cold towel on my neck, just all those little things to make me more comfortable. So at this point then they offered me to have some gas, which I really needed at this point to just help me push through a little bit further. So Unfortunately, though, for me, then the gas made my legs go a little bit wobbly. So again, I was in the birthing suite, standing over the bed, and I was feeling a bit wobbly. And Jack noticed I'd gone a little bit pale, so he said, "I think you might just need to hop on the bed now, hun, just to give yourself a little breather, and so you're lying down, because I do faint often,
Okay.
unfortunately." So that's something that he was obviously aware of. So I hopped on the bed and still in the same situation, listening to the positive affirmations, going through my wave breath with each surge. And at that point, like, my midwife walked in and she was just a guardian angel. Like, honestly, like, I had my eyes closed in my full moment. And then she just said, "Hi, Joe, it's Kim." And I just opened my eyes and I just said, "Oh my God, my savior." Like, just to see your familiar
Yes.
person that
Yes.
knows you, knows your birthing plan, knows like what you want. And it was just amazing, like, to have her there. It gave me that extra like oomph that I needed, having her with me. So then she then said, "Okay, so how far apart are contractions?" I was in a different world. Jack was giving her all the answers, so thankfully he was on that. Um, and so she was pretty shocked at this point how fast it had gone. And so she said, "Let's have another look now." I think now it must have been about, like, I don't know, 6:30 or something like that. And I was 10 centimeters. So she said to me, "It's time to start pushing now." I was like, What? Okay, like, this has happened so fast." So that's then when obviously I had to change my way of breathing.
Could you feel that expulsive reflex kick in?
Yeah, so it was interesting because I was honestly in such like my own world. And until Kim came and she said to me, "You need to push," then I thought, I do need to push, because things had changed, but I didn't get that full, "Oh my gosh, I need to push right now."
Right. Okay.
Um, so yeah, but once she said that, then I definitely felt that difference, and changing the way I use my breath. So then using that down breath to try and really draw her down, then I felt that difference. It kind of went from like holding her in to like bringing her out,
Yeah.
which is, like completely different. Then all of a sudden, you've got this, like, I don't know, this new strength about you.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And my midwife had some amazing techniques, because at this point I was still unable to get out of the bed. I felt really weak in my legs, which obviously was a little bit disappointing for me, because I wanted to be up. I wanted to be standing or something, but genuinely, just because of my past and fainting,
Yeah.
I didn't want to faint. So then actually, we started to go through the pushing process, and she was making her way down, but a little bit slower. And Kim, my midwife, got a little bit concerned with the CTG, just seeing a few changes on baby. So at this point, she actually took me to the bathroom and asked me to sit on the loo. So that obviously it's like when
Yeah.
you're on the loo, it's that natural feeling of coming
Yeah.
down.
Yep.
And that made a huge
Yeah.
difference. And because I was still seated, I wasn't feeling lightheaded, and I didn't have the wobbly legs because I was still on a seat, and had that natural feeling of going to the toilet.
Yeah.
So that really helped. And then we popped back into the birthing room and popped back on the bed. And she had a wonderful techniques which went really well with the down breath, which was actually having me hold a towel and Jackson hold the other end of the
Yeah.
towel. And every time that I had a surge come, I actually would then lift myself up
Yeah.
with the towel, and he would hold it.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Holy heck, you're like a sumo wrestler. Like, the strength that you had, I did not know you had in you."
It's amazing the strength that we do have inside of
It
us when we need it.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. So we at this point now, she was really coming down. I could feel her crowning at this point. Um and that's the point that I felt, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. I was having a little bit of gas here and there to just help me through with that extra bit of pain I was feeling. And then Kim said to me, she said, "Joe, you're going to put your hands down here now,
Yeah.
and you're going to feel her." And I didn't think that was something I'd ever want to do. Just I don't know, just never
Mm,
had that want. Um, but I did in that moment. I needed something to give me another push,
mm,
basically. So I popped my hands down there, and she said, "See, her head is here. It's right here." She said, "You're going to give me one more push, and
mm,
you're just going to pull her out."
mm.
So we did. And in one more push, we
Oh,
pulled her right out and onto our chest. And
oh,
honestly, that moment, it's like your whole body just like, oh, it melts. You're just
mm,
literally
mm,
like melting away.
mm,
And
mm,
you've just, oh, this incredible little girl.
mm,
Oh, I was in love. And obviously, tears are flowing,
mm.
emotions are flowing. It, it was something else. So it was an incredible experience. I did actually have to get an episiotomy
Mhm,
to help her through
mhm.
because unfortunately, the little monkey had her hand up by her head.
Yeah, yeah.
So not only was it the
Head, but the hand as well.
so I did have an episiotomy,
Mm,
but honestly did not feel it.
mm, mm.
At that time, going with your breath, again,
Yeah.
I literally just had those affirmations on me the whole time, the music going, little bit of gas. Yeah, I
Mm,
didn't even notice.
mm,
And just to have that extra bit of help
mm,
to just ease her through.
mm,
Um, yeah, it was something else.
mm.
And, just to have her there in that moment. Yeah, and straight away just latching on, it was just
Oh,
this.
wow.
Yes, it's a
Mm,
crazy it's like an unexplainable kind of love.
mm,
Unless you're a mum,
mm,
I don't
mm,
think you really know what it's
mm,
like, eh? It's
mm,
just
mm,
I never knew you could love something so much.
mhm, mm. So what time was she born? Do you remember?
6:55. So
Wow. So you did so well.
it was really fast. So I was like reading my discharge papers this morning, and
Mm,
it was 2 hours and 1 minute of active labor.
mm.
Which my midwife was just like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you did that." I said,
Yeah.
"Honestly, I don't know either." Like, remember, to be fair. Like,
That's incredible.
mm.
Well done.
So it goes to show though that like I didn't get the birth that I had envisioned.
Mm,
I didn't get my water birth, but it still was an incredible experience,
mm,
and it went fast, and it was just, I had all the support I needed and all the techniques to use
mm,
to get me to that point.
mm,
And honestly, I do believe like without going to your course, I wouldn't have asked all those questions,
mm,
and I would have felt really uncertain.
mm,
And I don't know if things would have been as smooth as they were, because I would have been holding on to a lot
mm,
of uncertainty and stress
mm,
about being induced.
mm,
But because I knew how to ask those questions, I knew that it was my right to do so. Um, it made me feel so much better and confident that
mm,
it was the right thing to do,
mm,
and I can still make it as great as I could.
mm. Awesome. Well done.
Mm.
Well done, you, because that was there was lots of big challenges there for you because, as you said, it's not the type of birth that you wanted. It's not the type of birth you envisioned, but in the
Mm.
end, you had to flow with what presented itself, the challenges that presented themselves.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, how have the last 3 months been for you with Ari?
Oh, they've been amazing. Like,
Mm,
she's been an actual angel baby. Like,
mm,
we feel exceptionally fortunate that she has been like that. Obviously those first few weeks, it just, oh, it's, I don't know, I call it like navigating a jungle without a machete or a
mm,
compass. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. You don't know how many books you can read. I think I read about 5 books, and you still, when your baby is here, it's just like this tiny little human is relying on me.
mm,
Like, um, but oh, I think once you get past those first 2 weeks and you're in such a love bubble, and that was the fortunate thing about lockdown. It was just us. We
mm,
had my mum as well in our bubble, which was
mm,
wonderful.
mm,
Um, but we got so much time to just be the three of us and really connect with one another. Have a lot of skin to skin time, myself and dad.
mm,
So just creating that really
mm,
special bond with her.
mm, mm,
Um, And now, like, we're in such a great routine now. I mean, she sleeps like an absolute dream, which is amazing. She sleeps all through the night, and she self-settles herself. So just things like that. And I mean, I put a lot of time into helping with some sleep training. At first, I was a little bit hesitant with whether I was going to sleep train her, but I just find it a lot easier for my day. Obviously, when I'm feeding her every 3 hours,
Mm.
it's good to know that I'm going to get an hour and a half sleep from her. And that's great for her development and growth as well. Because obviously, beforehand, when I wasn't kind of in a routine, it would, like, some days she'd go like 4 hours being awake, and then she'd be really fussy in the evenings, and then struggle to go to sleep. And then she was becoming exceptionally overtired. So yeah, I think having that routine has made it amazing, because now I can go meet my friends at the beach for a nice walk in the mornings and know that I'm going to be in a good time frame and just all those things. And now we've got a great balance. Like, I feel like, oh, I'm loving it. I really don't want to go back to work.
You don't have to think about that just yet, do you?
No,
No,
not
no,
yet.
no. And things, lots of things will change, and there'll be new routines that come into play and everything. But it sounds like you've just done so amazingly well, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to share the story with all of us today. So, you know, well done, and thank you so much. And is there anything else that you'd like to say to other people listening? Is there any one piece of advice, or you just want to leave it with what you've already shared?
Yeah, I think my one piece of advice is definitely, I mean, I've got lots, but your course, Helen, was honestly one of the best things that we have done. It changed my mindset on birth. I had heard so many horror stories, as people say they are, and people sharing their negative feelings around birth, and that with me when I was pregnant. And oh, I tell you, then after your course, I just shut them down. I said, I just don't wish to hear what you've got to say unless it's something positive. And it just made all the difference. It made myself and Jack feel like we could do this, and we could do this as a great team, and we had the techniques to do so. Um, and I tell everyone now that you must do that birthing course. Like, you have to do it. Like, even if you've had a baby before and I don't know, you've got a completely different feel, just give it a go. Just just give it a go, because it will change the way you see birth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jo. Really, really appreciate that.